Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? It is I, Seyorias, back with another video on Twisted Wonderland. And today we will be jumping into my thoughts on episode 4. But before we get there, I have to say, I am so excited. I am so happy that they announced season 2 is in production. And we did talk about this in an earlier video where I was unsure if we were gonna get a season 2 and 3. Some people were speculating that it would be in the works, and some said that it was officially confirmed. Well, today, or not today, a couple of days ago, they announced that season 2 has been greenlit and has been in production. So I am very happy with that news because I've been liking the show, and it means that Disney's actually investing more in doing something unique, like Twisted Wonderland, and bringing that to the public sphere. And this is coming from someone who knows nothing about the game or the books. You know, I am coming in as an anime only. So without further ado, I want to start by talking about episode 4 and how I feel it is the best episode so far, by far. And it has to do mainly with the lore and the world. We did get hints of episode 3 showcasing, okay, there's these monsters, especially in this magic mine that they had to find the Magistones in, right? You got references to the 7 dwarves. And what I really appreciated about sort of just exploring this world is there is a lot going on and a lot of references to Disney animated movies. So the big thing to me was exploring the different houses and talking about them more in detail, because there is clearly a relationship going on between each of these houses. And I think one of the cool things that they showed was, hey, you know, you're in this rundown dorm that isn't affiliated with any house, right, on campus, but every other house is really far away from campus, which is a very important point, because I think you also can talk about the different regions, especially with some of these Disney villains being located in different regions of the world. And like, for example, Scar and Jafar are going to be very different from, say, the Evil Queen and Maleficent's house, right? In terms of region, location, like climate. So just getting sort of a visual look of, oh, these houses look very unique. There's portals to these different houses, in addition to having a color scheme that is very different. Like, for example, the Queen of Hearts house, of course, is red. But then you have like Maleficent, who's green, and then you get like some blues. I think the blue is for Hades' house. And then I think the Evil Queen is purple. So you're getting a lot of like color coding of like each color corresponds to different faction. We got like insight into, oh, each house has their own separate rules and customs. And Riddle, the reason why Riddle is always upset is because Riddle is trying to uphold the ancient traditions, which is what we're familiar with in the Alice in Wonderland movie, with the Queen of Hearts of the off with your heads, and, you know, the very strict rules of painting the roses red, or paying attention to, you know, the hedgehogs, or the references to the flamingos, which I thought was like, the more that they bring out from like the original movies, like these old Disney movies, the happier I get, because that's what I grew up on. And to see that, like, almost, I won't say repurposed, but like added with a twist within this anime, just, I don't know, it just makes me feel like this is what they should be doing more, like Disney, as opposed to doing their live action adaptations, is take something that is very unique with their property, and or take something that's like their old property that's a success, like, say, you know, Sleeping Beauty or Snow White, and add a spin to it and bring it back into the modern day, like what Twisted Wonderland is doing. I did like how Ace and Deuce are basically attached to the hip, and attached to Yukin, even though he doesn't have a house. And I like the friendship. I've mentioned this before in episode 2, I think, and episode 3, where I like the friendship going on. And I like how Yukin isn't necessarily going to support Ace's shenanigans, especially when Ace came in. He's like, I need a place to crash. Yukin offered, you know, allowed him to stay with him in his dorm. but then he also was on his case when he revealed the reason why he has, you know, the Queen of Hearts lock around his neck was because he ate that tart. And I like how Yukin is like, nope, you messed up, dude. You're kind of a troublemaker. Yeah, Riddle can be like, you know, kind of crazy, but you have to apologize. You have to make it right. And I kind of like that straight man, or not straight man, like very straight to the point attitude that Yukin has. And I've seen it a little bit with sort of his relationship with Grimm in episode 2, where he kind of opened up to Grimm and was trying to like relate to Grimm because he reminded him of his like teammate on the kendo club. I did like how, you know, Yukin here is also being very honest with Ace, like a true friend would. And speaking of friends, I did like how Deuce did go to Yukin's dorm and it was like, I figured I'd find you here, Ace, especially because, you know, you got the lock around your neck. And then I also like how he was describing how, you know, Riddle was also using that spell on the other, some of their other dorm mates because they didn't wake up in time for class. And I like the little banter there. And it also leads a little bit of insight into like who Riddle's character is. And we especially get more of a deep dive in that when they go to visit the dorms. Like I said before, there's separate dorms for each house, and I think that's like really appealing to look at and think about, is that each, you know, villain has like their own culture, their own aesthetic. And if you look back at old Disney films, you actually notice this a lot, like the way they move, the way they act. To make a Disney villain iconic is to add these little nuances, and I'm glad that, you know, watching this show, you can definitely feel like the people behind this production are picking up on that and making sure that they're showing this in full force and highlighting it. So I thought all of that was great. But I also like how, again, I've mentioned like the painting the roses red, but we get introduced to another character in this, which is Diamond. And Diamond, I think, is really fun because, you know, play on the Queen of Hearts, but he's the third year and he kind of like likes to mess around with, of course, the freshmen, which is Ace and Deuce. But also you can tell that he knows the rules. He knows what's up. Unlike the first years who are still trying to like get used to all the rules going on. Diamond is very much the type of person who, or Cater, you know, Cater's the type of person who like knows how to like play by the rules, but also kind of mess with his juniors, right? And I thought that was good. I thought all of that was great. I like how he also has this ability, unlike Riddle, that makes it very unique to him, where he can clone himself, and he calls it split cards. And I think that's like a fun play on words, especially because Queen of Hearts, you know, you think of Queen of Hearts, you think of, you know, a deck of cards, right? Because you have the suits, you have, you know, like how, you know, the Queen of Hearts and then the hearts are kind of like, you know, the enforcers, and then everyone underneath, usually like the spades or the clubs, right? They're usually on the lower tier of the hierarchy within the Queen of Hearts faction. So I like playing into that, especially because, you know, you get sort of like, okay, there's a hierarchy going on and there's a structure, especially when it comes to like the third years and now the first years. I also like how there are a lot of unwritten rules, and I mentioned this before, but like talking about the customs of each house, I like how we're definitely doing a focus on the Queen of Hearts faction. I keep forgetting the name of what it's called specifically, but I'm always just going to refer to it as the Queen of Hearts house, just to make it simple. But yeah, they have a very particular strict set of rules just because that's how the Queen of Hearts was. But I also like them mentioning that each house is different. And it's almost that each member of the houses have sort of this relationship because their personality fits into whatever house they belong to. So I thought that was really cool. And I like how their magic is also very akin and very, what's the word? It's very in line with what the theme of the house is too. So I actually think in a sense, I feel like this is a much more detailed like understanding of factions than Harry Potter even did. Because Harry Potter had 4 houses and you only explored 2. And each of these houses, yeah, they had their own like colors and emblems and history to them, right? But you didn't really have unique magic or like unique environments that made them like set themselves apart from one another. That's what I like about Twisted Wonderland is you definitely do get that here, where each house is very unique, whether it comes to the magic they use, when it comes to location, when it comes to behaviors and members of each of these houses. Like I remember specifically the one that sticks out in my head is the Hades, right? His house, because they're very much about technology. And I'm like, ooh, that's actually very interesting to think about. That his house is all about like being brain smart, while like say Scars is more about athleticism. Which again is very in line to the theming of who these villains are. If they were to create houses or houses inspired by them, you can see where the line of thinking is, or how Maleficent is all about magic, right? And you know, the Evil Queen is about alchemy because poison apple, right? So I've been really liking everything that has to do with the houses. I've been liking everything to do with the colors, how everything looks. And honestly, the animation, I've actually been getting used to the animation. And maybe it's because, and I mentioned this before, there's so many other factors, whether it comes to music, when it comes to characters and story and writing, that if these are like really well done, I don't mind animation that isn't like up there with like Jujutsu Kaisen or Demon Slayer, you know? I'm fine with how this is progressing. Because if it's a good story, I'll be here in the long run. Like I've actually seen shows that have great animation that I personally have dropped or stopped watching. Not necessarily because I don't like good animation, but because I'm just I've fallen out of love with the story or the characters or whatnot, right? I feel like it's the opposite with Twisted Wonderland, where it's like, because so many other aspects of the show are high quality, I'm finding myself more and more invested in it, you know? Especially when it comes to, we're now getting sort of more involvement of other houses. Like we talked about the Maleficent house, right? We got some of the characters introduced showing up at the end of this episode. And even though, yes, it is a focus on, you know, Riddle and Ace and Deuce and Diamond and the house, like, and their house in particular, I do like how you do still have some interactions with the other houses. And I did see with the season 2 announcement, which is crazy. They announced season 2 before, you know, episode 4 even came out. This was a couple of days ago, and they're like, yep, season 2 is coming out, guys. Get ready, you know? But what I do like is, even though, you know, they already announced season 2, we get a sneak peek into who they're going to be focusing on. And I think that's, I want to say it's Scar's house, right? Scar's faction. So that'll be really fun because, again, I mentioned the differences. Their proficiency, their strength, right, is very much the athleticism, right, and sports. So maybe we'll get a lot more focus on the sports and competitions within Night Raven College. I think that'd be super fun because they did show that in the opening, and I think here too when they were describing the houses, they showed that there's some level of sports. So maybe we'll get like a couple episodes that are like kind of like a Quidditch match where it's just like this magic game that doesn't exist in reality, but it exists in this world because magic exists and these characters have powers, right? So it'll be fun to see that in season 2 if they explore that. But for now, I'm really liking just, I don't know, like for me, I just like how I can watch this show and not get bored, because there's so much going on. There's so much information. There's so many characters to be introduced. And there's so many questions I have of like how this world operates. And we're getting slowly but surely enough of an answer to keep us invested. Like, don't just info dump. This is how this works. This is how this works. This is how this works. It's more of a slow, like a slow burn into what this world has to offer. And I don't mind that. I think that's a very good thing, because, you know, we're going house by house. We're learning about these characters one at a time. We're learning about the differences between these houses. And I already like that so far. We already have a couple questions about, you know, there's these monsters. I know you guys have spoilers if you played the games or read the books, but this is coming in from someone who's blind. I don't know what that thing is in the mind, that dwarf, you know, that was attacking them, or this, I guess it's like a dwarf monster looking thing with a pickaxe. I don't even know if it was a dwarf. It was just a monster that like based himself after one of the 7 dwarves, you know. Again, I don't know anything, but you got that. You got, okay, each of these students have their sort of unique skill set and have this ultimate ability that they will use. Like Riddles was, of course, the off with your head, or with Diamond, it was, or Cater, right? Cater's was he can duplicate, split cards. So it'll be interesting to see what the other students' abilities are, especially when it comes to the other houses too. Like, what magic do they have that's very unique to them? And I would love to see some like tournaments, like fighting tournaments between students, where, you know, there's different magics. Like for example, Scar's house is very much about physical strength, while Queen of Hearts is more about rules and magic, right? The magic around those rules. Seeing those two clash, I think, would be really fun to watch. And like, think about, like, it's like a death battle. It's like, who would win a fight, right, between these two characters? And that's all I'm getting from this show, is like, it's almost, let me explain real quick. It's almost like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, where, you know, when you'll watch a movie like Captain America and Iron Man, right? When those two movies came out, their trilogies came out, it was great to watch. But the question in the back of everyone's mind was, especially in the first Avengers movie when they clashed for that first time, who would win in a fight between the two, right? And we got that in Civil War. Or I guess we kind of got an answer. It didn't really count because Bucky, of course, was helping Cap at the time. But besides the point, that was what we were wondering, is who would win in a fight. I could definitely see that going forward within this series of like, which house would come out on top in like a physical fight or a magic fight or a competition, right? And I want to see that. I think that would be really cool to explore. I didn't even mention also the professors they showed. Some I want to assume are inspired by some other Disney villains. Like I want to say one of them was inspired by Cruella de Vil, just based on his outfit and hair. Another, of course, I want to say it's Gaston for sure. That dude, the gym instructor with the muscles, I'm like, this guy's giving me Gaston. But like, what's going on there? So, let me just wrap up by saying, overall, great episode. I think it's the best episode so far. I'm excited for episode 5. I have been loving, like, just hearing that a lot of the fans of the game and the books have been saying, like, look, the animation isn't great, but it's been all right. And I'm at least happy that you guys are a little bit happy, because I only know so much as someone who's going in blind on how it compares to the source material. But just hearing that people are happy that season 2 got announced, happy that, you know, it's a passable adaptation when it comes to at least the animation front, because, you know, it could be a lot worse. It could be One Punch Man season 3 levels of bad. But at least so far, I personally view it as they know their limitations. They're giving us to the best of their ability, like a really good show for what they have. And hopefully with season 2 in the works, and with the popularity seemingly being strong enough to greenlight that season 2, that means we may get more going forward. And I'm happy about that. I hope we get more seasons. I hope we get higher quality as seasons go on, because I think that would actually be pretty dope if like it slowly gets better over time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. What do you guys think of episode 4? My name is Seyorias, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.